Hey folks, a little while back I made a little frame data overlay, that's what this junk up here is, that shows frame data for Soul Calibur 6. And occasionally people are like, well, how do you get that frame data? Where are those numbers coming from? What is going on? So this is just a little video about where those numbers come from and how internally Soul Calibur 6 sort of works or stores its data as a fighting game. And I think it'll be interesting if you're interested in how 3D fighters work, or if you're just interested in taking apart video games and seeing all the different ways the developers used to hack together a product that can run on your computer. So we start many weeks ago, and we need. So first of all, if you don't know anything about frame data, don't worry. This is not going to be a technical thing. If you don't know anything about bytes or any of that other junk, that's fine too, because this is going to be as non-technical a video as I can make about this subject. So we start off and we want to find. Let's just pretend all this other stuff. Let's just say we want to display the damage. All we want to do is show you how much damage. This move does 12 damage. We want to show you. And yeah, you might notice that the overlay does that already, which is super convenient. So we go into our favorite memory searcher, which is probably Cheat Engine, because Cheat Engine is great. And we say, okay, when I press this button, I want to find the number 12. When I press this button, I want to find the number... that's interesting. 10, although... How do I get that to 11? Huh. Well, I mostly want to find the number 10, because this move does 10 damage, and this move does 22 damage, and whatnot. So we search around, and we find a bunch of 22s. And some of those 22s are not the 22s we need, but some of them, helpfully, they are. You know, we find the location where it stores, you know, whatever it's showing here. And then we track down where that number's coming from. So Soul Calibur 6, like, it stores this, you know, it stores this 10 or this 22 or this 14, whatever it is. It stores this number somewhere, right? And we want to get to where that number is stored. And long story short, it's not easy. You know, many sleepless nights, a lot of sniffing of footprints. Whatever trackers do in real life. But we find that these damage numbers hang out in a little block of memory that doesn't ever change, and that is the same for every character. Well, it's not the same for every character, but it's similar for every character. Similar looking, it has a similar structure. So you might say we can follow these damage numbers back to a little house. And the little house looks like this. And you might say that doesn't look like a house at all. And you're right. You're right, it doesn't look like a house at all. But we grab one of these for every character. And every character has a little block of little hex bytes. This is just a hex viewer. This is HXD. But you can view this in whatever hex viewer. And we look at the little hex bytes, and they form little patterns. And the first pattern they form is these first 4 bytes, which is always KH11. And that's very reassuring, because that sort of means these things are all similar, right? All these, you know, we followed the damage number home, and it goes and rests in this house, and every character's damage numbers go and rest in similar looking structure. Now, I'll spoil this for you, because you probably don't want to figure out what all this stuff does on your own. every one of these starts with these 30 bytes are a little table of contents. This is just a table of contents about how to find our way around the little house, which I've actually called I've called this house a move list, because it sort of defines all the moves the characters can do and the properties of all those moves. Although, yeah, it's a little more expansive than like your normal move list. Anyway, so the first 30 bytes of this move list are just how we find our way around the move list. And I'll spare you the agonizing details, but just take my word for it. So then we get down to these next bytes. And what you might notice, if you are the kind of trained, expert programmer, hacker, extraordinaire, is, hey, there's a lot of F's here. And a lot of F's here. And wow, there's a whole lot of F's here. And even more F's. Wow, there sure are a lot of F's. And you say, well, what if I just measure how far it takes, so to get from this F to the beginning of the next F, how long is that? And our hex editor helpfully says that length is 48. And I say, okay, well, how long is it to get from this F to here? Oh, that's 48 too. How long is it to get from the end of these F's to the start of these F's? Oh, it's 3C. Oh, but that's interesting, because there's not quite as many F's here as there usually are. So let's just say that's maybe a bit of an abnormality, and check this one. Oh, this is also 3C. Well, what about down here? Oh, 3C again. But all these 3Cs. Oh, no, I'm measuring the wrong thing. I'm not including all these F's. Yes. Be sure to measure correctly when you're trying to count the size. So yeah, we should be measuring to here, where it's always going to be 48. Alright. Yes. So we were measuring 3C. It's 3C between the F's, but it's 48 if we include the F's. Anyway, there's a whole lot of these. Like, you keep going, and it's just fucking F block, F block, F block. It turns out each of these little 48 blocks, each of these 48 bytes, is defining a move. And they're defining moves that some of them you'll recognize. You'll be very aware of. You'll be like, oh, that's 5A. Oh, that's 5B. Oh, that's 2K. And some of them are going to be like when you do this is like 10 moves. Like, there's a move where the camera shifts, and there's a move that like has a little hitbox that hits your opponent, and there's a move that like puts you in the state of Soul Charge. That's the super, not Soul Charge. So some of these moves are going to be a little less recognizable, but they're all moves, and there's a whole lot of them, like a lot of them. But eventually, like all things, they come to an end. And we have, you'll notice these F's. You might say, well, these F's, aren't they the same as these previous F's? Aha! They are not. Because when we measure from the end to the beginning here, wow, suddenly we have 70. 70 is way bigger than 48. And notice how these all line up so neatly. Look, it's just like the other F's, they kept scattering around due to the fact that 48 is not neatly divisible by how wide our hex editor is. But 70 is. And you can see there's just this nice, neat, clean pattern. You can actually see it over here, even in the string viewer, which is mostly garbage. You know, these Y's, these are the F's, right? And it's just straight down. So these are another list of things. However, instead of moves, these are hitbox properties. And in fact, one of these is actually where that damage number, this 10, that 12, that 20, inside one of these little blocks is where that damage number lives. Because in these blocks, it defines the properties of what happens when you hit someone with a hitbox, with a move. So it's defining all that stuff like how far they get pushed back, whether they get launched, how fast the startup is, what the block advantage is. Actually, almost everything in this that is in this frame data comes from these little blocks. Almost, not quite everything. Well, you say. That's really quite interesting, you say. And I might have skipped over this, but these moves can have they can link to one of these little blocks. Not all of them do, but some of them do. After that, there's just a bunch of garbage. Like there's no Fs anymore. The Fs are gone. It just looks like a bunch of crap. And you're like, well, how are we ever gonna figure out what this does? Don't worry. We've figured out what this does. This is a bunch of scripting information. So every move, this is essentially, you can think of this as all the properties that aren't somewhere else. And there's a whole lot of them. So the developers designed the move, and they were like, this is going to be 48 bytes. They designed the attack properties, and they said, this is going to be 70 bytes. And they said, well, we're going to need some other stuff, because like, what about like that cool thing lethal hits do? Or what about your electricity on your weapon? Or what about guard impacting? And they're like, well, okay, that's just going to be in this bag. Every move is going to have a little bag of stuff. And it can be whatever length, because we don't know how much stuff we're going to have to put in a bag of stuff. And so every move has a little script. Now, you might have noticed, as we go through these, that this hex editor is not actually a terribly good way for viewing these bytes. So we're going to throw the hex editor away, because screw that. And we're going to use this little move viewer that Scuffle comes with. Now these are the same bytes. These are the exact same bytes. You can see, hey, we still got all these Fs on the end. But they're displayed in a little nicer way, and they come with helpful notes about what they do. So this move ID, by the way, this ID up here, that's just the index. That's the number of F blocks you have to go. If you think of each block, F block, so that you have the first F block, right? And then the next set of Fs is the second F block, and then the third set of Fs is the third F block. This index is just which numbered block it is. It's the 295th block. Go down past 294 blocks, and then the 295th block has the information for this move. So for this move, it's in 295. And this move, it's in 330. This move, it's in 310. And that's all that we're showing here. We're just showing the 310th little block. And, well, you say, what is all this crap? Well, let's start with the first little note. The first little note says animation ID. Well, that's kind of cryptic, but fortunately, I wrote it, so I know what it means. And it means there's a little animation that plays when you do a move, right? Like, every move. So let's take this little giddy up on the second hit of this move. This little giddy up is 4F020400. What if we take that and assign that to something like standing K? And we're gonna reset so you can see the buffer. You can see this is just standing K. It's a normal standing K. It looks like a standing K. And we're gonna say no. Now it's little giddy up. Oh look, now it's a little giddy up. Now it still has all of the standing K's properties. It's still a high. This is actually the real one is a mid. But this one doesn't have those properties of the real one. This one just has the animation of the little giddy up. So you press K and you get the animation of the giddy up, but you get the properties for the kick because we haven't changed those yet. Also in here, there's a speed multiplier. So this looks this C842 is just a percentage. So we're going to change the percentage from 100% down to, this is, it's not displaying it, but this is 25%. And now, we do an extremely slow motion giddy up. Or, we could go from 25% and we could crank it up. This is 400%, it's not displaying it, it's displaying the old number, but whatever. And wow, suddenly that is the fastest giddy up ever. Holy mackerel, that's fast. That's 4 times as fast as it used to be. Most moves don't use this, which is good because it makes it messes with the frame data reader. The frame data reader, none of these values get updated, or rather, this number multiplies all those values, and it's a hassle to find this number and multiply everything by it. So I don't do that. So some moves are just wrong. That's why so Tira has this unblockable that's I can't do because what? Yeah, this unblockable. You'll notice the frame data for this unblockable is like 25 frames. That's interesting. I was gonna say, and that's because this is just a slowed down move, but if you look at the frame data, it's not a slowed down move. Well, whatever. It was gonna be a really good point. Man, that point was gonna be so good. I was gonna say like, well, the frame data for this is wrong because this is just multiplied by like 30% or something. Some other move. But that's not it at all. Still, you know, that could have been the answer. Also in here, there's the total number of animation frames something has. Although I'm not sure if that has any effect or if that's just for, like, keeping track. I'm not sure if you change this, if anything. Actually, I think if you increase this, your character just freezes awkwardly until it's over, maybe. This is the address of that little bag of miscellaneous bytes I told you everything has, the scripting bytes, where all the stuff that doesn't fit in the rigid structure of these other two goes. Oh, and this is the hitbox index. So, how to best demonstrate this? Okay, so here's down 2K. It's a low, right? Here is. Is this gonna work? These startups are too different. Startup has 16. Startup has, oh, they're pretty close. Here is a little launchy mode. If we take this index from our launch mode and we stick it on our 2K, breaks. Breaks. Something went. It doesn't. No. It's sad. They're too different. We could make this work, but oh, it's probably because the hitbox is on like the weapon now, and the weapon is all the way back there. But we can take like. We can take this hitbox and we can stick it on something like 5A. Hopefully. Make sure to stick it on both 5A hitboxes. I don't know why 5A has 2 hitboxes. Nope, that. Nope. Well, anyway, it obviously controls the hitbox because we're changing this number and the hitbox is completely breaking. I wonder. Anyway. Many moves that will, like, so this move we changed the animation, it still sort of works, but it's not crazy that just randomly, like, changing stuff, the moves aren't quite configured to work right. We could probably make it work right with a little bit of work that it's probably not worth wasting time on right now. Anyway, next we have the attack properties. That's not the best move. Yeah, here's 5B. Here's the attack properties of 5B. Now 5B only has 1 hitbox. That's what all these Fs are. So there's room for 6 hitboxes. But those 6 hitboxes kind of come with the animation. And obvious moves you'll think of that have multiple hitboxes are stuff like Sung Mina's spear moves, where there's the tip hitbox that has good properties, and then the staff hitbox that has less good properties. Siegfried has tip moves. For Tira, she has multiple hitboxes for like Gloomy and Jolly on some moves. So this move in Jolly is like, well, it'll actually show us what it is in Jolly. It's plus 12. But this move actually has a second hitbox that is plus 14 when you're in Gloom. So we go over here. We have our little 5B hitbox. And we have the first couple bites, and I don't even know what the first bites do. There's no helpful note here. I don't know. The second bites control. It's a little hard to describe. It's kind of the width of the hitbox, and I don't know why the width of the hitbox is even controllable. And it's weird that it is, but it is. But it's also kind of hard to demonstrate and boring to demonstrate, because the next thing to demonstrate is way cooler anyway, which is the physics of the hit. When you say the physics of the hit, what does that even mean? Well, so when we hit Tira, the other Tira, you notice how she flinches back a little, and we start out right next to each other, but after the hit, we're a little farther away. We're about this distance away now. Well, that distance is controlled by this variable. So now we hit her, and wow, we're really far away. We knocked her right into the movement. That's a lot of pushback. And this actually is controlled by 2 bites. So if we change this one, wow, holy mackerel, that's a lot of pushback. Wow, now she's on the clear other side of the screen, and you know this keeps going up to pretty ridiculous. You know, that's the kind of pushback you start to get into. Eventually the pushback like starts to shove you to the other side of the screen. It gets kind of glitchy. Anyway, then we have these next two are still, these control the direction of the pushback. So this is sort of the left-right direction. So we hit her, and yeah, she ended up behind us. Like we're here, and she ended up over there. And these other two, for launchers, they control sort of up, down, forward, back. Here, I think we could probably make them do the same thing, but it's a little harder to show, like, because for pushback, you can only operate in these 4 dimensions. It doesn't exactly quite map in a clear way. Anyway, so we have physics for hitting people but not launching them. We have physics for hitting people and launching them. We have physics for counter-hitting people but not launching them. We have physics for counter-hitting people and launching them. And you might say, wait, there's no moves that both... Like, why are these separate, right? Because there's, like, the launchers always launch. Or at least, there's no... In the cases where a launcher sometimes launches on, like, counter-hit and doesn't launch on, like, normal hit. Like, these, you still wouldn't need 2 on counter-hit and 2 on hit properties. And as far as I can tell, these are just redundant. Probably some older version of Soul Calibur had some reason these were here, and maybe some, like, Soul Calibur historian can be like, oh, I played Soul Calibur 1, and they really needed those, because here's how some stupid thing worked. But as far as I can tell, these are just completely redundant now. And moves just don't use one of these. If you're a launcher, you don't ever use the not launch option. If you're not a launcher, you don't ever use the launch option. So the physics on launch is essentially the same. We can make this, if we increase the magnitude on launch to something large. Oh, this is the wrong hitbox. Because this stupid move is 2 hitboxes. What about this move? Yeah, that's the good stuff. That's the kind of launcher I like to see. Like playing Mario Golf over here. Yeah. Oh, that's great. They should give Tira that. There's physics for when you hit someone and they're airborne already. There's physics for when you hit someone and they block. So how far someone gets pushed back when they block, basically. And in what direction they get pushed back when they block. There's physics for hitting someone when they're on the ground. These all work roughly in similar, like you can sort of extrapolate how to draw on a line. There's the hit level. And the hit level is just, oh, that doesn't, I'm gonna run out of moves. So this is, what's a good, so this is hold on, can't quite. So this is a low. Ooh, this is a better, yeah. Ooh, wow, I'm running out of bloody moves. I need something without any pushback that I haven't ruined. What about this? Okay, so this is a mid. And it says mid when we hit him. That's how you know it's a mid. But if we take the hit level from something that's a low, like this 2K, and we stick it in to the hit level of our mid, suddenly it doesn't work at all. It's not what I expected. Should work. Well, let's take the hit level from a high. Like this. And stick it in. Yeah, so now it's a high. It used to be a mid, but now it's a high, and that's just controlled. Why didn't that low? There must be some interaction with lows that I haven't quite figured out. And we can make it a special. Can we make it a special low? We can try to make it a special low. We take something from a move that has a special low, drop it right in that, drop it right in there, and now it's a special low. So this is just the little, this number just controls, it also controls whether something's unblockable. It controls whether you can hit people on the ground. Stuff like that. Then there's this thing I've actually figured out. A lot of these numbers have notes, but it's still, I actually don't quite know what they do. This move contributes to guard damage. It also contributes to the kind of hit spark that plays when you hit someone. This move is just how quickly active frames come up. So if we take like this move, normally it hits with a satisfying crunch there when the kick hits him in the stomach. But if we change the start up to be start on like frame 1, then it hits, wow, like it hits right away, right in the ankle, as even before your kick is coming up. And this next one is when the active frames end. Damage, we can change this to something. And now our forward kick does an entire life bar's worth of health. Block stun, hit stun. I wonder if this works on moves that knock down. It's hard to tell in the dummy. I think hit stun is kind of ignored for moves that knock down. I think the knockdown takes priority. Hit effect. This is like, so you know how she like flies backward and like plows over the ground when you do this? Like that's what the hit effect is. So most moves have a hit effect. Running out of moves. Here. So that little flinch is another hit effect. There's a ton of hit effects. There's hundreds of hit effects. Most of them are pretty benign. Like here, there's like she just does this little flinch. We could, if we take the hit effect from something like this. We can pop it on here. And suddenly, bam. Now you notice that this isn't quite the same. Like this move has that nice little bounce to it. And this move just fucking slams them into the ground. And that's because our launch properties are different. If we steal the launch properties as well. Here's our launch properties. And we replaced these launch properties. Now it's basically, yeah, now it has this very now it's the same. It has that same kind of bounce. We can do the same combos off it. Although we're Tira, so we don't have any like real, every combo is just like a 2-hit combo. I don't think Tira has any, like, Tira's combos are so bad. There's block effect. Block effect is the animation that plays when they block. Some of these are like forces them into crouching or something. Pushes them in like one direction or the other. I don't know what these do. This number overrides the guard damage. There's some other stuff I don't really know what it does. Hey, at the bottom we have all those Fs we saw. These, as far as I can tell, unlike, so for moves, all these Fs were actually various, these were all potentially not Fs. These were potentially indexes of attack properties. But these, as far as I can tell, are just always F. And finally we get to the cool part. This is a little weird. That's okay. And there's actually notes on these too, but they're totally useless. So I'm not even going to show you them because they're like completely useless. So the scripting, every move has this bag of scripting bytes, and they're all over the place. This controls almost everything that you can think of that you haven't seen in those other two. And you might not have a very good imagination. You might not be able to think of things. So this controls stuff like this electric aura. The little voice clips that play. You know, the high... when she says wait here, that's controlled by from in here. The move cancel strings come from here, so the fact that you can go 5AA, you can do this into this next move is controlled from in here. Huge amounts of stuff. So well, every one of them starts with this simple. What we have here is the basic structure here is there's a little instruction, and then there's some arguments to the instruction. So every cancel starts with 0, 1. And 0, 1 is basically... Or script, sorry. I originally called these cancels because it was how you figured out whether one move canceled into the next move, because I didn't realize that there was going to be so much stuff in here that was not that. I'm trying to transition to calling them scripts, move scripts, because that's a lot more what they actually are. Just arbitrary scripts that run every frame for a move. But, you know, change is hard. So, the script starts and they have these little instructions, and this first one is just, hey, I'm starting your script, and the argument to that is nothing. And then the arguments get more complicated. So this is an if argument. This is saying if what, you say? Well, it's saying if this, and this represents some condition, you know, the ability to press buttons or something. I don't actually know what very many of these are. There's some of these that are like, if you press B, if you press A, if you press kick, if you hold guard. But there's a lot of them that aren't that, and it's difficult to figure out what they are. So this is just if this. And then we have this, which is, you know, this is a go-to or a jump. It says, so this put either true or false somewhere. Like it says either something's switched on to true or it's switched off to false. And this says if that thing is true, do this, you know, go somewhere. Or maybe if it's false, just go somewhere. It's a little unclear. And that's what these little lines here. They're the lines from. So this argument here, 0030, is saying go to byte 30. And over here, we actually have the helpful notes. The most useful part of the helpful notes writes out, hey, this is where byte 30 is. And that's what this little line is doing. It's just drawing a line between this go-to command and this byte 30. So, let's see what's in here that's somewhat useful. So let's grab this electric effect. So we go down here, and there's all this junk. I don't have like most of this stuff, who even knows what it does? But a few things I've kind of figured out. And this is the electric chunk. So if we take this and we just stick it on some other move. That's not the right. Huh. We didn't take it correctly. Huh. That's okay. We take this. And what we're looking here is this 8B30A3. That's what's really what's really cluing us into the fact every 8B30A3 is defining some electricity. So we stick it, we go over here, and we say, alright. Bam. Hey, now there's electricity on our 5A. And this is the same electricity properties as this move has. And we can put electricity on our forward K. We can put it on our headbutt. Can we put it on our headbutt? We can probably put it on our headbutt. Assuming we don't hit the gloomy version of well, we'll either put it on the jolly headbutt or the gloomy headbutt. 50-50. Oh, hey, we hit the jolly headbutt. So now we have an electric jolly headbutt. And these arguments, all this junk, it's just saying stuff like, you know, what frame does it start on? What frame does the electricity end on? There's that little flash. You see that little flash that goes off there? Oh, it didn't even go off there. That is, when that flash goes off is, I think it's this number? So if we said it's like 01. Yeah, now it goes off right away. Bam. Voice clips. So something like. So she says wait there. That comes from this little block 8B. Oh, there's not very many blocks here. It's this one. 8B07D. Oh, it might be this one. Well, it's one of these two. Let's delete it and see what happens. That's the wrong move. Yeah, see, so now she doesn't play wait wait. And if we go to another move like this, where she says let's dance, and we grab a similar looking, wow, there's let's dance is an incredibly long move. You can see the scripting editor is the least useful of these, but it's also the most complex. Eight B something something something. Here we go. Nope, that wasn't it. Yeah. So now she says wait wait when we do our little sidestep. So that's cosmetic stuff, but there's also stuff like cancels. So here is BB, right? But what if I don't want? What if I want? So what's a move that would be weird to cancel into? Let's cancel into like a gloomy move, like 308. So I'm gonna look up here. I'm gonna see this ID is 308, and I'm gonna go and I'm gonna find the cancel into. So the next it cancels into 296, and 296 is 128 in hex. Let me just that look for cancels. 12E 130 128. And we want, what did we say we wanted? 308? 308 and hex is 134. Just gonna change that. Now when we do BB, bam, we get our, wow, look how much, what better. Oh yeah, that's still is hilarious pushback. Look how much better we are now. Wow, it's a huge tier up. So this block is controlling those cancels, and it controls stuff like what frame that cancel happens on, and what frame, how many frames into the move we skip, and some other stuff. Anyway, that's a brief overview, probably more than you ever really wanted to know about how Soul Calibur 6 works. Obviously, there's a lot of stuff we still don't know yet. A lot of things remaining to figure out. But I think what we have figured out is pretty cool. And now you know where all this junk up here at the top of the screen is coming from. You might say, well, I don't know where TC frames come from. And it's like, well, you don't exactly know, but you can make a pretty good guess, right? They come over here from scripting. There's one of these stupid instruction codes that has the TC frames in it. And you'd be right. Good job. So, I hope this has been informative, entertaining, something useful. And that is how Scuffle and Soul Calibur 6 work. Thank you very much.